If you're watching this video right now, you're probably getting to the end of your sales calls and hearing, I need to think about it. It's out of my budget. This is too much money. Let me talk to my wife, whatever that may be. And I'm going to teach you something today that I call pre-handling objections. And what this is simply preventing any of these objections from coming up at the end of the call, right? This skill right here, as soon as I implemented it, I instantly doubled my close rate and then doubled and even tripled my commissions each and every single month. Okay. Now I'm going to walk you through all of this right now and exactly how it works. Let's get right into it. Alrighty, so now we're getting into the actual breakdown of everything that goes into pre-handling. There's going to be two routes when it comes to this. There's going to be the route that they have invested before, and that they haven't invested before or done any training, etc. So just to preface, so just so everybody understands, when it comes to pre-handling any sort of objections, if we're going down the nothing route, which we're going to go down first, as if they haven't done anything, prospects are going to give you a ton of smoke screens, as far as like, have thought about it, the money, time, didn't have enough info, maybe they give you pushback, didn't find the right solution, didn't want to get scammed, doing research. All of these are smoke screens. We have to figure out what is behind that and find the real limiting belief or real objection, as you see over here as well. So what it looks like is, let's go down the route of nothing, like I mentioned. First one we have here is haven't thought about it. Okay. So anytime we ask like, hey man, like what's prevented you from investing in training or mentorship, and they say haven't thought about it, complete smoke screen, like absolute BS. I always like to use the gym analogy here of like, hey man, with all respect, that's like an overweight guy saying like they've never seen a gym before, or they never thought about going to the gym. So for you, if you really thought about it, like what's actually slowed you down? Okay. Next one is money. Money and time are really similar. So I'll walk you through the word tracks for that right now. Money, that's if anybody says like, oh, I didn't invest because I didn't have the money at the time, or it was a lot of money, whatever it may be. Looks like this. So, hey man, like it's subjective. If we look at money at the end of the day, it's going to be a byproduct of our skills. So let's just break this down for a second. Like if you had the skills, and everybody, you can plug in like what you sell. So let's say we're selling a trading or like e-com mentorship. We can say if you had the skills to have a successful e-com business, what are you gonna have more of? And they're gonna say, oh, more money. Yeah, you'd be like, yeah, because there's gonna be two types of people in this scenario. There's gonna be one guy who says like, I don't have the money, so I can't. But there's also another guy out there who says like, how can I find the money and get resourceful with it so I can invest in myself to gain the skills to make more money? Between those two people, who do you feel like would have been the better person to be the past 2 years, or plug in the time? And then we want to get buy-in. So why do you feel that way? And then we go into, so what prevented you from being that number two person who did get resourceful? Now, the framework's very similar for a lot of these, because we're ending with like what's prevented you from being that person, the person who gives the binary question, because we want to figure out what's beneath that, what stopped them from being that person in the first place, because then they're going to tell us the real objection. Okay. Time is the exact same framework. We're just plugging in time. So time's subjective. How we spend it comes to how we prioritize it, or what we prioritize. So let's break this down for a second. Like if you had the skills to be a successful e-com business owner, do you feel like time would be much of an issue anymore? They'll say no. Right, because honestly, there's going to be two types of people. There's going to be one person who says, I don't have the time, so I can't. But there's also another guy who says, how can I find the time and get resourceful with my time so that I have, so I can actually invest into my skill set? And between those two people, who do you feel like would have been the better person to be the past 2 years? And then we say, oh, it would have been the second person. Okay, so why do you feel that way? And we're going into, so what prevented you from being that number two guy who did get resourceful? Same thing. We go through that rabbit hole. They're probably going to give us the real limiting belief there. Same goes for didn't have enough information. Now, I know I'm throwing all this at all of you guys, but it's very important to take notes if you are watching this. It'll be very, very helpful. But let's go into didn't have enough information. So anytime somebody says, oh, I didn't have enough information on mentorships, what it looks like is like, yeah, no worries, man. Like, has tangible outcome been an important goal for you? And they're going to say yes. And tangible outcome is like what they want from what you do. So if that's financial freedom, time freedom, whatever that may be, they're like, yeah. So honestly, man, there's going to be two people in a situation like this. One guy who says, I've never looked for advanced help because I didn't have the information. But there's also another guy out there who says, knowing I'm having these issues, I need to go deeper and do my research so I can inform myself and then invest into myself and into my skill set. Now, for you, between those two people, who's been the better person to be the past 2 years? Oh, the second person. Okay, so for you, like, why do you feel that way? Oh, because that person got resourceful. Right. So what prevented you from being that second person? Same framework, literally same framework. We're going to a small reframe to a binary question, and we're in with, okay, what prevented you from being that person? Now, pushback is anytime we're getting on a call and a prospect's like, hey, I'm already doing very good. I'm not sure if I need this. Any sort of pushback, it's self-explanatory. This is what you're going to say. Looks like this. So yeah, man, like absolutely. Like if what you're doing right now is working, like keep doing it 100%. But here's one thing, like we're on the call for a reason. It's like being in a happy relationship, man. Like if we were in a happy, loving relationship, we wouldn't go to the bar and look for another significant other. Right? Similar to now, we would not be on this call if we didn't need any help. It's like it's a saying I think of, like it's either you want to be good or you want to be great. Like which one do you want to be, brother? Okay, yeah, prospect says I want to be great. Right. So every single decision we make has to be from the perspective of getting us to great, not about how good we feel we're doing now. So for you, what's actually slowed you down from investing in yourself or getting more advanced training to get to great? That's how it looks right there. And now we'll go into, haven't found the right solution, haven't found the right mentorship as well. This is a very common one. So the breakdown for this is like, hey, I get what you're saying, that's fair, but let's unpack that. Like, how would you really know what's right for you if you haven't put yourself in a position to know? You're like, oh yeah, you're right, I would know. But yeah, man, so what we've seen from the most successful people is like they didn't wait for the perfect solution for them. They made the solution perfect for them, but actually committing. Right? So for you, what's actually slowed you down from committing from the help we've needed? And they're probably going to give you the real limiting belief. Now, here goes for didn't want to get scammed, wary of scams. Now, we have to be careful with the word scam. Like when we get this word, we want to throw it out of the window almost immediately. So the word track for this is like, okay, man, so how do you mean by scam? Is it more if I invest my money and I don't hear back? Or is it more of like I invest my money and the information isn't as good and, I don't get the results I might have wanted? Because like what we're doing here is kind of like isolating the objection. Like when someone gives scam, you want to throw it out the window right away. So I'm bridging it into, is it this or is it this? Is it like I invest and I don't hear back? Or I invest, I get in the program, information wasn't as good. So then they're going to tell us what it was, which is almost always like the information wasn't as good and I don't get the results I wanted. And then I go into, okay, so like that makes sense, man. So like, let me ask you, like, what was your worst case scenario? Like, what were you really hesitant of happening if you did invest? Like, really break this down for me. And when they break that down, I go, okay. And if that did happen, like, what were you actually afraid of losing out on? Because like when we ask this question, we're looking to have them tell us that they were afraid of losing money or maybe their time invested, because it's going to be one of those two. We're just guiding them to that answer. Okay. Now, that's how we're going to handle that one right there. Usually it's going to come out to like a fear of losing money, fear of losing out on the time and it would have taken if they did invest. And then doing research, that was a common one as well. So the word track for doing research is along the lines of like, yeah, like no issue. So how long were you researching? Okay, so you've been researching for 6 months. Like that's a long time for researching. Like what were you looking for out of your research? Oh, I was looking for more clarity on what would be the best program for me, let's say. And then we go, okay, so how would you actually know that until you commit to yourself? And then it's like, oh, like that's true. Like you really wouldn't know. But yeah, like knowing you wouldn't know. So what's prevented you from not doing as much research and actually investing in yourself? I'll probably tell you what it was. Okay. Now we're gonna go into the invested before route. Now a lot of reps make the issue is they think that just because someone's invested before that it's going to be an easier close, or number two, they feel like that the prospect is off the hook because they have invested before, which is just not the case whatsoever. So going down the rabbit hole of when they have invested, let's start off with good, right? We'll go with tell me about that. Why was it good? Okay, what would you feel like was missing? How long have we known this? And then did you do anything to fix this? Because the idea is whatever program the prospect was in, if they're on the call with you again, it did not get them to where they want to go because they would not be on the call if they didn't need help. So it's like I was saying before, the whole relationship analogy. Like if you were in a happy living relationship, you wouldn't go to the bar. If you were fully satisfied with where you were, you wouldn't be on the call. So that's the mindset you need to have when it goes to the good route, because it could have been good from getting them point C to point B, but it didn't get them from point B to point A. That's why we ask, what do you feel like was missing in that program or in general? And then how long have you known this? If they tell you they've known this for 6 months, then we're going to ask, okay, what did you do to fix this? And then they're probably going to tell you nothing because they're on the call. And then we're going to go back the rabbit hole of going down the nothing out here and seeing what they want to give us this time around. Okay. Going into bad, let's say they invest into a program. We say, okay, how was it? Oh, it was bad. Okay, why is that? And then we're going to ask, were other people getting results in there? Because there's a lot of times where prospects will say, oh, it was bad, it didn't go well, which is usually BS. Because if we ask if other people were getting results in there, we can spin it back on them and say, okay, so if there were other people getting results, like the question then becomes like, why did it not work for you? And then what happens is the prospect may tell you something like, oh, I wasn't as committed. I could have made more calls, could have made more time, which is 99% of the time that's going to happen. They're going to actually tell you why they didn't get results and why it was bad. And then same thing, like, okay, so how long ago did we realize this? Let's say the prospect says, I wasn't as committed. I didn't go to all the calls when I should have. And go, okay, how long ago was this as well? This realization? Okay, this realization was 6 months ago. So what did we do to fix this? And then we're going to go back down the rabbit hole again of going back into the nothing. Okay. Same with been burned before. Now, a lot of prospects or a lot of reps think that just because the prospect has been burned before, that there's not much we can do. We move on in the pre-handling stage, but that's completely wrong. I'll show you how to do it right here. So it's like if somebody's been burned before, you're like, no issue. Can I offer another way to look at this? Yes. And I say, so let's say if you took your car to a mechanic and they overcharged you or messed something up, do you think you'd never go to another car mechanic again? And they're going to say no. And you're like, yeah, probably not, right? You would just find a new mechanic instead of going to the same one who gave you that experience, right? Because now it's not great that it happened, but there's also a benefit that you are now equipped to make a better decision because you know what to weed out. Because like what we're doing here is we're taking the negative of them being burned before, and we're now making them feel more confident in the decision because now they know what to look out for, and now they're on this call because they feel confident in what they actually need, right? Because I like to use an analogy here where it's like, yeah, they burned you once and that was not on you. But if you let that hold you back from making the change you know you need to make and getting the help you know you need, that's how they burn you twice. And that analogy works really, really well because then we're tying down commitment of, are you committed to not letting them burn twice? Yes, they're going to say yes every single time. Okay. After that, because there's two phases to the whole they've been burned before. We want to tie down. We want to pre-handle that. We want to get their commitment, tying it down using this frame. And then when we ask how long ago was this, let's say they were burned a year ago, 6 months ago. We want to go down this route again of nothing. Like, okay, so this was a year ago that you were burned. What has slowed you down from actually taking the step on getting advanced training the past year? We're going to go down this rabbit hole again. Okay. For any time someone's invested before, there's a lot of people who say they have, but it's like a very cheap program, right? So what it looks like is, hey man, so if I say, how much did you invest into that program? And let's say somebody says 1,000 or 500 or 100, 250, whatever it may be, we want to instantly sweep that under the rug because that does not count. There's a lot of times under calls where people are like, yeah, I invested. And if you just ask how much they've invested, it's usually just cheap programs and we can filter it out immediately. So what it looks like is like, yeah, like, well, that's like, it's hard to expect a cheap solution to give you a really expensive outcome, like getting to, and you're going to plug in what they want. So like getting financial freedom, right? What do you think about that? Prospect will say yes because you want to get their like check for agreement on that. And then we go into okay, so exactly, man. So I mean more of like an advanced mentorship. Like what slowed you down from actually investing into something more advanced that might have costed you more money? And then that's when you're going to get the real objection there. Like what's actually slowed them down? Okay, because when you ask that, then we go down this route of the nothing. Now here's like the actual limiting beliefs. We have fear, doing it on their own. Those two are really, really good to get. Now complacency and laziness specifically are going to be ones where we want to figure out what caused them to think this way. Because if somebody says like, oh, they were complacent and they were lazy, and we say what shifted now that made you want to like not be lazy and invest in yourself, like we're not handling the real belief, the real objection that's behind that, if that makes sense. Because somebody could have been complacent, and if we say, yeah, like I appreciate you sharing that, but like what's knowing how important your goals are, like what's caused you to be complacent and think this way, they could tell you like, oh, I had a fear of failure in the first place that kept me stagnant and kept me complacent or kept me lazy. So it's very important that when we're getting complacency or lazy, that we want to break this down one more. Doing it on their own is really good to hear, but we want to hear a little bit more of like, okay, but like what's actually caused you to do it on their own now? And we want to figure out if that was like just ego doing it on their own, or they felt like if mentorships like didn't work, like whatever it may be that caused them to do it on their own. So we always want to break those down. Fear going to be a really good one to hear. Fear of failure, whatever that may be. But if we hear fear, that's a really good one. Okay, so here's like the actual way to handle this here. When we finally get the real belief, the real limiting belief, we want to take them through this framework right here. Okay. So the first step to the process is we're going to ask what shifted now that made you want to overcome the fear of failure and actually invest in yourself. It's important we ask this question because when we do, we're getting the prospect to not only tell you, but tell themselves why they're ready to make a change by overcoming their old limiting belief and actually investing in themselves. Okay. This question right here is called holding up the mirror. In other words, getting the prospect to admit to you that they are where they are now because of the limiting beliefs they've had. So what it looks like is, because you have that way of thinking where you've let the fear of failure stop you from committing to the help we've needed, has put you into the position to where we're still working our job and we're not able to provide the level we want. Like you're just going to plug in their situation. That was an example. And they're going to say, yes. Now we're moving into the consequence question, because like looking back over the past 2 years, what have you lost because we've let the fear of failure keep us stagnant? Oh, I've lost tons of time. Right. So what if this is going to be the future facing question. So it's what if you keep allowing that way of thinking to stop you from investing in your skill set? Prospect will say, oh, I'm just not going to get to where I want to go. And you're like, yeah. And are you willing to settle for that? They're going to say no. Then the last question is we're going to go into grabbing their commitment. So what it looks like is this time around, knowing how important it is for you to actually be that guy for family and get to that financial freedom goal, how committed are you to becoming the guy who actually overcomes the fear of failure and actually invests in yourself so you can become that guy for the family? How committed are you to doing that? And they're going to say very committed if you take them through the whole frame correctly, right? All right, but that right there is going to be the entire pre-handling framework. And besides that, I will see you all next video.